All right, so we're going to talk about source control. Before we get started, my name is Grant Fritchey. I work for Redgate Software. I want to get that stuff out of the way. I've been a DBA for a very long time. I've been in IT for even longer because I don't like talking about it because I'm an old guy now, which is not fun. Anyway, just want to let you know my background a little bit. Mainly came out of development, but I've been doing DBA work for a long time. A lot of the discussions we're going to have today around source control, continuous integration, and deployment management are all, how best to put this, pain. It's all about pain. Pain I had as a developer, or pain I had as a DBA, or pain I've had as a team member working with developers or DBAs. Now I know this is a UK audience. Therefore, no one likes or will raise their hand. But please, 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 tell me who's a dev, more or less straight up dev. Cool, about half, excellent. DBAs? Ish, even ish? Cool. Other? Because a few people didn't raise their hand. What? Okay, and then, of course, managers. Oh, wow, they raised their hands in the UK. The US, they will not raise their hands and admit it no matter what you do. Okay, cool. Excellent. I just kind of want to see what the distribution is. This is pretty good. I'd rather see more DBAs in here because I'll be honest, well, I'll talk about it later, but DBAs are the problem when it comes to deployment and mechanisms. But we'll detail that and you'll understand what I mean. Anyway, I do want to talk about source control, and I want to talk about the value of source control, because source control is extremely important. So let's just ask a question. Who puts their app code in source control? I would say just about everyone in the room. Cool. That's a good thing, right? That's normal process. It's what you expect to do. You put your app code in source control. Really? Okay, some hands are going. Okay, that's pretty good. That's unusual. That's almost a quarter of the room, it looked like. Usually it's one or two people out of 30 or 40 that do it. So this is, again, you're in a good spot already, a lot of you. The other 3/4 of you, welcome to the future. All right, now we're going to explain to you why it's the future and why you want to jump on board with this idea. All right? I don't know if I quite agree with that statement. Can you guys see that back there? Zoom in a little bit onto the, whoops, wow, that was the wrong keystroke for this computer. I'm blaming the British keyboard, not me. No, it is fighting me. Okay, well, for those who can't read it, I hate doing this. I never read slides. Developers who refuse to use source or version control should be fired. Simple as that. Anybody agree with that statement? People are going, yeah. They're the ones that already have their stuff in source control. Everyone else is going, well, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a great idea, especially if we're not talking about developers, but we're talking about DBAs. That's a pretty strong statement. The rebuttal for that, yeah, but it's just me. I'm just doing a little experiment. It's just this one time. It's just this, I'm just throwing it away. It's no big deal. It's just me. I'm just in a small team. There's only 3 of us. We're a law office. It doesn't really matter. Version control pays off immediately. It's just a major portion of how people do development. I mean, half the room, slightly more than half the room, are developers. You guys wouldn't do it without it, right? Well, it's the same thing for databases. It doesn't change at all. I'll tell you a quick story. Happened to me yesterday. That was fun. I was going to a client site, spend a few hours doing some training with those guys, and I'd been doing some experimentation with some new code and stuff I wanted to show off to them and let them see, some things I was doing with statistics and different ways of maintaining statistics. And I had this great set of scripts. It was really cool. And I copied it from one machine to the other and kind of wasn't paying attention. And it said, "You want to overwrite this?" And I said, "Yeah." Oops. I didn't have it in source control, which I actually normally do. But I was just kind of in a hurry and wasn't paying attention. Guess what? What I copied was from the older version on top of the newer version and blew away all the really cool scripts that I was getting ready to show people. And so then I was sitting there in front of an audience like this and said, "Hey, here, let's look at this." And you open it up and it didn't do anything. That was a fun moment, but that was a tiny moment. That didn't hurt my business. That didn't hurt us monetary-wise. We didn't stop development. We didn't lose anything. That was a pretty small issue. It was mainly embarrassment at my own stupidity for not making sure I had this stuff in source control. But you've got to start doing version control. It is a major, major part of everything you do. If you're in the argument that you don't need it in databases, I'll guarantee you actually are probably already doing it. We'll talk about that in a minute. This statement is really important to me. I absolutely believe it. I not only believe it from a code standpoint, I believe it from a database standpoint. I am a DBA. It means I'm a jerk. That means I'm mean. It means I'm cranky. It means I get up at 3 a.m. and it makes me meaner and crankier the next day. Everything. Every bad thing you say about DBAs, it's got my picture next to it. But source control is something I believe in as a DBA. It's absolutely something I've been doing for years and years and years. And I'm absolutely a firm believer in it because I think it's this. I'll explain more about it in a bit, but can I answer it? Any phones ring, I get to answer them, okay? So I love answering phones, actually. Now that I said that. Hang on. 1 second. Apologies. There we go. Because we don't want mine going off. That would be very embarrassing. All right. Anybody know Jeff Atwood? Coding Horror? Great website to learn stuff from, right? I mean, nothing like negative examples to learn. He says that your database should always be under source control right next to your application code. You deploy the app, you deploy the database. It's like peanut butter and chocolate. They go great together. It just makes sense, right? This is not a concept that anyone should be arguing against. The real question is how do you do it? Because the fact is, the source control acts as a safety mechanism. Further, source control acts as a communication mechanism. Source control is a method for communicating one team member to the next and making sure that each of the team understands what's going on. It's not simply a question of, okay, we've got a backup of the code, and so stupid stuff like what I did yesterday is protected against. That's actually easy, right? It's that you've got a mechanism for communication. What version are we on? What changed from the last version? Who made the change? Because I actually like knowing who made the change, because I'm doing code reviews later and I get some really horrendously bad T-SQL, I know who to go talk to, right? But that's me, I'm a jerk, I'm a DBA. It's all about the communication. Now, some of us may not have to deal with things like this in their jobs. Many of us may not have to deal with things like this in our jobs. If you have to deal with things like this in your job, the concept of a rollback or a do-over or a second chance or, hey, I used to have 10 fingers, now I have less. It's not possible. But for most of us, most of the time, we've got the capability to have a second chance, to do a do-over. And source control and the ability to check your code in to a place where it keeps versions of it, so when you mess something up, you can undo it, right? You can roll it back. You've got history. It's just a huge win. It's just a major way to go because you don't want your code to be like this. Do I cut the red wire or the blue wire? Oops. Or worse yet, you say oh and another word, and those are the last words you ever say. That's just not kind of fun, right? You don't want that to be like that for your code. Is anyone radical disagreement? I prefer it if you were, because it'd be much more fun. Okay, cool. Let's talk about a mechanism. This is not the only mechanism, but this is a mechanism that you could use to do source control. Oh, and it's going to fight me all the way, isn't it? So we're on a VM inside of a VM. This should be entertaining. Tech support guy, this isn't working. Ah, there it goes. Cool, thank God. All right, one way of doing source control is SQL source control. There we go. Good. One mechanism. It's not the only mechanism. It's a RegGate mechanism. Hey, look where we're at. We're at RegGate. So we're going to show you this one. I'll talk about some of the others that are available to you because you want to think about it. It's not, the whole idea of source control that I'm trying to get across is the concept of source control. If you use RegGate tool, awesome. It'll make all the salespeople happy. Doesn't matter to me at all. I'm a nerd. But you got to get your stuff into source control. This is one way. Now our source control system, right now, this one's already linked up. I'm going to show you, I'm going to actually walk through live on how to link something up. It's pretty simple. It's mainly just talking about a database linked to some sort of source control system. In my case, I've got it in Subversion. It's got a migrations folder, you've got the model, and then you've decided is it shared or dedicated. We'll talk something about the shared and dedicated models in a little bit, so I don't want to dwell on that at the moment unless somebody has specific questions. But the actual process of checking something into source control is pretty easy. Let's go to Nerd Dinner. We're going to link that database to source control, and now we've got options. So, Git. Who here uses Git? Does it make coffee in the morning? So I'm told it solves every single problem. If it doesn't make coffee in the morning, I don't want it. No, it doesn't. Okay, well, maybe Git, Mercurial, Subversion. We're using Subversion just because it's easy, not because it's better or anything, and not necessarily because I believe in Subversion. We support TFS. We support Vault. You can, anybody here still using VSS? One hand. There's always one person. I don't know why. There's always one. We even support VSS. Of course, you have to do a manual setup of it because we don't like VSS. No offense. Do you like VSS? Okay, good. Usually they would say no, I don't like it. My boss won't let me leave it. But basically, we can give it a URL, give it a name. Hopefully this will work. Whoops. Sorry, UK keyboards keep messing me up. Why do you guys hide the shift key so hard? Why is it doing this to me? Hang on. I'm going to cheat. There's how we cheat. Dun, 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 dun. Haha. So now we just modify it. So what that did was literally go inside here and into the folder that we said Subversion repo. It's added in all of my database objects. So it's done a scripting process where it looked at every single object, tables, users, triggers, columns, indexes, database objects, right? You've heard of them. Anybody not heard of database objects? Okay, cool. Database objects, all scripted, all checked in to source control, all through Management Studio. Now, an alternative, you don't have to, again, you don't have to do Redgate. Visual Studio has a tool, database, SQL Server database tools, SSDT. Fine product, very slick. Doesn't work in Management Studio. Anybody here actually use Management Studio for any kind of database tasks, right? Wouldn't you like to keep all your database tasks in one spot? Probably. Well, so that's why you go this approach. But because now that I've got this stuff linked into source control, I can go in there and look and see what stuff has gone in and what stuff hasn't. At this point, I've not yet committed my changes. So it's looking for, yeah, I'm not doing updates. Last time I did updates before a demo, everything burned to the ground. I won't do that again. Not because the code was bad, but because my demos changed. It made me really insane. So I've got changes that I've made, and you can see all the different little tables, all the different little stuff, and it's all been modified. And you can even click on it, and it's going to show you exactly what was there. Now, because it's never been in source control before, there's nothing to compare it to, right? One side is, you know, a bunch of script, and the other side is nothing. Anybody shocked? No, good. So you always add comments. We always add comments on check-ins, right? Never type in demos, by the way. And that's why. Okay, so now all the changes that were outstanding have now been committed to the database. Woohoo, we're in source control. Yay. No, don't clap, that's a joke. If I had changes outstanding from other developers, I could go here and get changes. I can mess with migrations, we'll do that on another day, and I can go in here and do the setups. It's all works. Now, if I want to, never, ever, ever, ever do what I'm about to do. This is bad, okay? I can go into the table designer and I can add columns. And the keyboard messes me up again. So I'm going to add a new column. We'll call it, you know, whatever, I don't care. Tiny int and allow nulls. We'll make it a nice simple one. And we'll even hit save. Okay? Horrific way to do your decoding. It's just not cool. However, it's still just T-SQL under the covers ultimately. And so now you'll notice over here we've already got a little icon indicating a change has occurred. See a little blue? See how the dinners table there has changed to blue? That's an indication that we've got changes. And now if I go back to my source control system, take a look at commit changes, I can see, you guys see that in the back there? Yep. That new column that I added is missing from the stuff that's already in source control. So it's literally like that. You can just keep going. And I'll commit this and it'll go in, and it's all happening pretty fast because it's running locally on my machine. It's not transmitting very much across the network at this point. But that's how it works. It's all straightforward. Ta-da! Source control database code done. And even if I'm doing stuff in a stupid way, which is using that god-awful table designer thing, which doesn't work for any Azure databases, by the way, it still picks it all up because it's just T-SQL under the covers. It doesn't really matter how you make your changes. It all comes in automatically. Any questions on that basics? Sure.
Can I just ask Mitch, can you or should you just choose objects which you source control and which you don't? Because we tend to struggle with sort of logins.
That's, you picked my favorite thing. She asked, should you pick which objects you source control and which you don't? Because she struggles with logins. Yeah, so do we. Logins are hard. Logins is one that we hit issues on. You've just picked on a weakness. But it is something we're working on better mechanisms around. But do you pick and choose which object you check in source control? Short answer, no, never. Longer answer, of course you do. You're going to have to discriminate in some ways, in some manner. You're going to find things that may not belong there or should be there. You may have situations, for example, where it's a third-party product that you're developing against. So some of the code is yours and some isn't, right? And then that stuff you want to make sure you source control your code, but you don't necessarily want to source control the third-party code, right? There's a juggling act that occurs, absolutely, in all cases. Anyone who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something, right? It just is. Comments on that one? Okay. Ta-da! You can look this up. The links are at the end of the thing. Basically, it's how do you do source control? It's not hard, right? The concepts of source control are pretty straightforward. The idea is that multiple places, multiple people, and all it takes is two, right? Or even, it doesn't really take two. Who here has ever gotten the phone call, oh, we have a problem in production. You go into production. You identify the problem. Oh, it's a store procedure. You open up the store procedure, see what it is. You're looking at the code and you're going, oh my God, what moron wrote this? And then you go back to source control to look it up.
It was you.
Yes! Yes, it was not, well, it wasn't me, it was old me. Because new me would not have done that stupid thing. It was old me. But that's two different people involved as well. And luckily we had it in source control, and so instead of me like making an assumption that it was some other idiot in the department, and I walk up and start screaming at them, which I've done. Oops. I make sure, I fix the code so I don't screw up again. The whole idea is the source control gives you the ability to back up and restore independent of backups and restores for your database. Yes, you should still be doing backups and restores in databases. Not just because it protects data, but it also protects structure and code. But it also does protect data. But you still make a mechanism of backing up structure and code. You have a way of synchronizing so that two people can be on the same version, right? Or I can get your changes and she can get his changes, right? That synchronization can occur. You've got the ability to do some level of undo, right? That whole thing about snipping the wires in the BOM. You want to be able to roll that back occasionally versus leaving fingers on the floor. Long-term undo, like it says, sometimes we mess up bad. You want to be able to track changes. You want to be able to track ownership. Yes, when I open that code up and it's me, that's a problem. But when I open that code up and it's you, we're having a chat, right? Sandboxing. I'll talk about sandboxing in the third session today when we talk about sandbox development and all that other stuff. And then branching and merging, the most fun you'll ever have as a developer, right? At least 3 people are smiling. Cool. That means you felt the same pain I've felt. The whole concept here is that the idea behind source control is to attempt to manage risk, to attempt to keep things under control so that we're not going nuts, so that we've got a mechanism of protection above and beyond what backups are going to give us. Because you're not, correct me if I'm wrong, development probably is not on full recovery with log backups running every 15 minutes, right? Development's probably in simple recovery because Timmy, the developer last week, ran some really stupid script without a where clause that caused the log to destroy the server, and we've decided that maybe we'll just leave it in simple mode, right? No? Yes? Okay, good. People are going, yes. Yes, Timmy works for everybody, yes. So you guys met Tim before? Tim's my default name for every screw up I do or others do. So that way I don't have to, embarrass any individual person. Except for the people in the audience named Tim, who I now have to apologize for too. Anyway, the concept is you want to make sure that you're managing your risk. You want to reduce your risk. Now, I used to work for an insurance company that the design behind the insurance company was not normal insurance. Normal insurance is what? They get a bunch of math, they do a bunch of actuarial tables, and they decide you're going to die at age 52, so up to age 51 your insurance is cheap, and starting at age 52 you pay through the nose, okay? That's one method. Another method is going in and saying, look, you'll pay this much unless you go to the doctor once a year, get a checkup every 6 months, join an exercise program, and then we will reduce your rates. We did the same thing, but we did it with engineering. We would walk into a building and say, okay, this building is going to burn down next week, I guarantee it. But you want us to insure you will put in a sprinkler system, it will look like this. And so what we did was manage the risk and reduced the risk that we had as insurers, and then we're able to charge less. Your concept is that you guys are going to walk in and do the same thing with your code. You want to manage the risk, reduce the risk, and ensure that you can deploy from a position of knowledge. And that knowledge is source control. Anybody doing stuff like this? These are all Steve's presentations, and he does versions. Version 17, version 13. Anybody do things like this with your files? Okay, not SharePoint, right? But actually versioning files. You're doing source control. So anyone who thinks they're not doing source control and you do this, you're doing source control automatically. That is source control. Because you're versioning things. You're keeping versions of it available. Does anybody have this one? Some people are smirking, some people are nodding, and a few people are shaking their heads. If you're shaking your heads, that's the right answer. Oh my God. That's the right answer, but you know what? That is also source control. So anyone who thinks they're not source controlling their database, but you've got that kind of, what's a good word, crap?
Unless it's the year one.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. I'll give you that. If it is actually literally a version, cool. But probably that's not. That's probably a method of backing up your stuff. Anybody doing that one? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? And just pulling copies of your code into the... No? Nobody's ever done it that way? Okay, maybe I'm weird. Oh wait, I am weird. Sorry, I already knew that. That is also source control. So even though you're doing all this stuff, it doesn't really matter. My whole thing, the whole point here, so I got one more? No. The whole point here is I don't care what you use. Yes, I work for Redgate Software. Yes, please buy our products, spend money, because they pay me. That's important to me. And my wife, or actually it's more important to my wife than me, but yeah, that's cool. But that's not the point here. The point here is just use source control. The point here is source control your code. The point here is to make sure that you've got a method of communication across your team, across your organization, that allows you to put your database into the same mechanisms that you do your code. I'm going to, my third session today, all I'm going to talk about is the pain and joy of being a developer or a DBA and having to work with a developer or a DBA. That's all we'll talk about. But the mechanism of communication between those two groups, in addition to actually talking to each other, yes, I do recommend that, believe it or not, is source control. Source control becomes that mechanism of putting stuff across. And I don't care if you do it this way. I just want you to do it. Now, having said that, automation is better than not automating, right? Flat out. It's just is. Who here is running their backups manually every day? Does anybody have to run out of the room in 15 minutes to do a log backup? And every 15 minutes you're going to run out of the room and do a log backup? No. Why?
It's automated.
Because it's automated. Absolutely. So you have mechanisms for doing source control. You could do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then just copy your files from one to the next to make sure that you're always working on the latest copy. By the way, that gets old, just so you know, but it was safe. Should have done it yesterday. But that's the whole key here, is the reason I'm pushing a tool, and again, not necessarily Redgate, SSDT does work, and I like saying that out loud. SST works. There's some bits and pieces about it that I honestly don't like, and I can talk about that in detail if you want. But automation is the key. Who here, DBAs, supports one development team? 2, 3, 5? DBAs, do you support any development teams? 6, 7? Anybody support more than 7 development teams at the same time? Really? How many? 9. Man. Because I did 7 at a time and I thought I was going to die. That was horrible. 7 was way too much. I mean, normally it's 4 to 5 development teams I had to support, but I had to do 7 for about 9 months, and that was, I wanted to pluck my eyes out. Daily, hourly, 9. Yeah, man, all respect. Absolutely. The key is when you're supporting 9 teams, you do it all manually, right? Oh no, he does. Oh, cool. That's why you're here. All right. Well, cool. That's good. That's good. We're going to help you out there. Personally, when I was supporting 7 teams, I started learning all kinds of cool automation mechanisms. What? There's a command line for it? I'm in. Right? I didn't even know, and I've been using a SQL Compare for about 5 or 6 years, and this was 5 or 6 years ago. But I'd been using it 5 or 6 years before I knew there was a command line. And what drove me to get it was I'm supporting all these teams, and I'm going, oh my God, I can't keep doing this. And I saw something. It's like, what? Exie? What? Oh my God! You know, and overnight things were better. You know, it's just automation is what you got to go after. So, talking about development, talking about the concept of shared development, talking about some rules. I hate the word never. I hate the word always. There's always exceptions to always and never, right? So using always and using never is nerve-wracking. But predominantly, don't share databases for development. I've done it. I had a situation where, luckily they weren't all my teams, but it was 12 teams inside of a single database on a single server, shared. 12 different teams. And the reason we did it, it was, you make decision, you know, anybody heard the concept, you always fight the last war? Is that an American thing? Anyway. The concept is that, you know, you learn a bunch of lessons because, you know, you either got your bottom kicked or you, woohoo, we won. But the lessons you learned were for that one, and the one you're in is not the same. And so the stuff you do, which would have worked great in the last one, is not working so well now. Well, we hit the same situation. We had 12 teams inside of a single database, right? Everybody was in the one database. Why? Well, because prior to that, they had siloed everything to the point where there was no cross communication at all, right? Nobody shared anything. You want something, you come to me, you know, you sacrifice a goat, crawl across your hands and knees for a mile in broken glass, and maybe I'll give you some data. And that was causing problems in the company, so they were like, no, we need everything shared, everything shared. And so we were like, okay, well, these applications don't really talk to each other. Put them in the same database. Okay, no problem. Put them on the same database, and guess what you find out? 12 different development teams doing 12 different things at 12 different speeds. Nothing but conflict the whole time. Take it down a notch. Take it down a bunch of notches. 2 development teams doing 2 different things at 2 different speeds on the same database. Right? Conflict is still going to occur. So generally, I hate saying never, but generally, don't use shared databases. Isolate development into one database. Either one per team, or better still, one per individual. And we'll talk some more about that too. Always have an authoritative source. What's the authoritative source I'm advocating for? Say it loud. Can't hear you. Source control, thank you. Source control, but I don't care what it is. It doesn't have to be. We prior, many years ago, prior to the ability to get things into source control, there was no easy way, like 10 years ago. But we had a single database that was, this is the authoritative, and everyone acknowledged this one is the authoritative source, right? That everything would draw from. That didn't work real well because people could change it and we couldn't tell who changed it when, but at least we had the definition of this is our authoritative source. So absolutely you guys need to have that. And then versioning. Now prior, when we had a single database that was our authoritative source, there wasn't, there was no such thing as versioning, none. We just didn't have it. I mean, yeah, okay, backups from last week, but what version was that? Thursday. It's not a version. That's a moment in time, right? But you need to version it because you want to be able to say, I'm assuming developers, you're versioning your app code, right? This is version 3.1. Okay, what version is the database on? For the quarter of the room that is versioning their database code, they know too. For the 3/4 of the room that's not, what version is the database on? Well, the one in production. Cool. What about the QA team? Yeah, we don't know. What about the dev team? Yeah, we're not sure. What about staging? I don't know. What about, so you want to make sure you've got versions. The concept, the unnecessary evil of the shared database shared development database. The issues that you're going to run into are twofold. If you share it, you're guaranteed conflict. You just are. But what are you also guaranteed?
Shared data.
Shared data, absolutely. What else? Instant integration. If you check it in and everything's still working, if you build it out to the shared database and everything's still working, everything's still working. It's just an instant integration point, which is kind of cool. But does it always work that way? No. What does it more frequently do? Bombs the planet, right? Everything goes down. It's all on fire. People are running around screaming, waving their hands. It's not cool. But, I hate the word never, but I am an advocate of, and developers usually love it when I say this, I'm an advocate of making sure every developer's got a copy of the database. Now, we're going to talk about some of the implications of that later, because developers all go, woohoo! And DBAs are going, oh my God, I've got a 10 terabyte system. Developers are going, yeah, what's that mean? We'll explain it to you, I promise. But shared databases aren't wrong. It's not the only way to go. As you say, test data. First one right at the top. It's one of the reasons you want to use it. Sharing the code in a common place. Hey, guess what? Maintenance. I only have to touch one as the DBA. I'm happy, right? As opposed to hundreds, thousands. And security. I can set up security policies in one place, enforce it in one place, I don't have to worry about anywhere else. That's all nice stuff. It makes things a lot easier. Conversely, though, test data is much easier to provide, but it's also much easier to screw up. It's shared. When I'm testing my delete statement, that's not going to help your select statement, is it? Just saying. The concept of easier maintenance is great, but if we've got our databases in source control, why am I maintaining your local sandbox machine? Hey, guess what? I'm not. And even when you call me, hey Grant, my sandbox server's running slow. I'm like, I don't, did you try turning it off and turning it back on again? Because that's your machine. I don't have to support you anymore. Right? All the other servers that we've got out where we've got shared integration, whatever, I'm going to support, but I don't have to support that local stuff. And security policies, Well, security policies slow down development, frankly. And if I can make it so the developers can do anything they want, and I can protect production, win. And that's what sandbox servers give you. So the isolating the development is actually better. I don't want to. I just hate throwing out the concept that shared development is no good. I think this is the way to go. I think every single person gets their own copy of the database. Everybody. But here's the bad news. Developers, what data do you want to develop against? Say it.
Live server data.
Yeah, live server data, production data. I want the production data. No. Done. I can't do it. I can't do it on two levels. I can't do it because of security concerns. I have a story I will tell later about security concerns. And I can't do it because of space. I just don't have enough. We got a 10 terabyte database. I can't give 10 developers each their own copy because we don't have 10 times 10, 100. 100 spare terabytes to throw out to you guys. We don't. Plus the fact, how long will a terabyte take to back up and restore? Or migrate? Yeah, DBA's at front of me. Geez, God, don't talk about it. Right? We just can't do it. So what we're going to do is give you a minimal set of data. We're going to have a shared place, though, where everything gets merged. And we may have multiple shared places, and I will talk about that later, too. But we're going to have a shared place where everything gets merged. So the idea is very simple. Through source control as a mechanism of communication, through source control as a mechanism of deployment, through source control as a mechanism of getting you guys what you need, I'm going to let you have everything you want exactly your way locally. And then we're going to have a shared place where we integrate everything and validate it. And that may be a multi-step. But that's the goal. Because what that does is that makes it so developers go fast. And I want the developers to go fast. I know I'm a DBA, I know I'm a jerk, but I'm making that determination that you guys need to go fast and I need to protect production. And the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. That's the concept, and source control gets you there. Naming standards, I don't care. Have fun. But whatever it is, let's have one. You know? Name it something intelligent. Yes, there's ISO standards, but all that really matters is consistency. So that, you know, within our organization, within our maybe only within our application, but you know, when I call it an apple, it's an apple and not a cup of water, right? Because you know that matters. Does that make sense? Cool. Styles, I don't care. Again, individual styles just don't matter. And source control makes it so, you know, you can do things any way you want to in source control, right? It doesn't matter. You can rearrange it, do things in, do things out. Who puts commas at the beginning? You're wrong. Just flat out, I'm sorry, you're just wrong. But it doesn't matter because we're going to put stuff in source control. And source control is our management scheme. You know, rearranging code, that's easy, right? How you make your code readable, that's easy. There's multiple tools. SSMS tool pack, awesome stuff. Who's that? A something. They do something good. Redgate does stuff for you. It doesn't matter. Let's talk about it. If we create a store procedure, this thing has one. Nope, it doesn't. Cool. All right, we're going to do things for real now. Finally, back to T-SQL. Oh, nuts. You know what? I'm not going to be able to do this. My demo machine, the license died. Wait, we'll do this. Yes, I know. I've got another machine where the license is not dead. Whoops. Stop that. No, not that one. That one. Give it a second. I've got source control on that one too. I found the dead license this morning. That was really upsetting. Come on, baby. Still not quite started. How much time we got? We're doing okay. There we go. Oops. Never type in demos. Oh. Yay. If the license comes up bad on this one, we're just skipping everything. You guys can go home. No more beer for you. No, it's already coming up.
Because
It's
I'm
all
driving.
fine. Pardon?
Good because I'm driving.
Oh, cool. Well, here's my statistics script that failed yesterday. It's still open. Look at that. Oh, God, that was so depressing. Anyway. Back to here. Let's see what we got for databases. Oh, okay, cool. We've got movie management checked in. I think I've already got a store proc here. Nope. All right, we'll create one. No problem. That was the whole idea anyway. Create procedure. God, it makes life so much easier. dbo.myquery, whatever it is. SSF. Whoops. As. Okay, cool. Now I can create this and then just refresh. So we've got that there. And now if we go over to source control, we want to commit changes. It's only seeing the database. Why isn't it seeing the procedure? Come on. There it goes. So I can commit the changes now, and that'll check that in. Now here's the fun bit. Now who here thinks I put the, zoom in so you guys can see it. Who here thinks I put the commas in the wrong place? Okay, cool. Let's do this. Let's go up to, get out of my way. There it is. Let's go up to prompt. Let's change the options around. Let's go to, where is it? Commas and parentheses. And we're going to place commas at the start, make you guys happy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, you want it aligned to the statement or aligned to the list?
The statement.
Okay. Oh, the statement? So that all the way over on the left like that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm easy. I don't care.
Easy like Friday morning.
Yes, that's right. All right. Control K, Control Y, it lines it all up exactly right, right? Everybody happy?
Yeah.
All right, let's make
Well,
them.
I am. I don't care about anybody else.
I don't care about anybody else. That is a great DBA answer. I like that. All right, so I altered the proc, I ran it, and it's now altered that proc. Now, let's go back over to source control. Let's do a, well, nothing to get, so let's do a refresh here. Well, hang on. Well, it's not seeing anything. Why? Well, because this is Redgate, not me. Okay, when I say this, Redgate's not stupid. I'm pretty stupid, as I demonstrated yesterday. They've made it so that it doesn't look at white space in the same way. So you want to rearrange your commas, go for it. You want to rearrange those commas and then submit that to the query so it gets built, go for it. It doesn't affect source control, so we don't have to redeploy it just because I went back to here and said, no, 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 you guys are crazy, you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about. That is the worst possible way to do things. And we're going to put the commas back at the end where they belong. Even though I make the change to the thing, source control doesn't care. It's not going to have to recommit that, which causes a new version, which would cause new deployments and all this other stuff going on for something as silly as moving commas. And let's be honest, it's silly, right? Except for the fact that you guys are still wrong. Silly though it may be. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yep.
Great. Questions on anything so far? Except for the fact that it didn't have the right licensing set up? Cool. What's going on? Come on, come on. Good gosh, that was work. All right. Anybody here just a complete and utter lone wolf? Just you and no one else? No? There's always usually one or two. Cool. Good. That means you guys are all on teams. That means you've all got to actually talk to each other.
Occasionally, yeah.
Occasionally, okay, yeah. When you're in the mood. Because of teams, because you actually have to talk to each other, because you've got to have a method of communication, you actually also have to have a method of coordination. You've got to talk to each other and you've got to coordinate everything. Source control is that mechanism. Source control makes sure that when I'm talking about a version, you know what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about a version of a store procedure, you can go and get that store procedure and look at that same version of the code that I'm looking at. So when you say, hey, yeah, I checked it in, it was fine when I checked it in, I can go in there and go, no, it wasn't. Look, here's version 3.1.4. Yeah, well, I checked in version 3.1.5, you moron. Oh, oops. Let me do a get, update it. Yeah, you're right. 3.1.5 is awesome, right? Communication. Less fighting. More communicating. It's good. It also, you guys want to be able to coordinate stuff so that when you're making changes, you're not stepping on each other's toes. You use something like Git or Mercurial, it allows you to merge code. Now, I know a lot of people are going, wait a minute, I don't want to merge code. I want mine to go in. Okay, well, don't use Git or Mercurial. Use a different thing. Use TFS. TFS works great. Who is using, by the way, Git? Couple? Mercurial? Really? Yeah. Really? Wow, I'm shocked. TFS? Okay. Well, it's not bad. Everybody was just like, oh, I use a Microsoft product. I'm shamed. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. Be proud. SVN? Wow. I had no idea it was that popular. I will stop making jokes about it. Wow, okay, cool. I had no idea. That's great. Stop. Automation is how you get things going because you've got to be able to work with a team. But the point is of automation, the beauty of automation is that, you know, what's it do? It makes it so 2 + 2 = 4, and you can do it again and again and again very fast. Cool. But when you put in 2 + 2 = 5, you're basically digging a really deep hole really fast, right? When you automate something badly, you automate a steam engine digging a hole. That's really what you're thinking. You know, think about it that way. I mean, you're really making things bad. So when you automate products, when you automate tools, you've got to automate them in a way that works for the team and not against it. That's just a big part of it. And again, source control, source control, source control, right? I mean, I'm saying the words over and over again. I can't help it. But it's why I go back to. Again, though, whatever IDE you use on the team, it doesn't matter. Here's one of the things about SQL source control. We can work with different product types, meaning you want to work against Visual Studio. Okay, cool. Work on Visual Studio. You want to work inside of SSMS? Cool. Work inside of SSMS. You can use both sets of tools at the same time. So if you're a development-oriented person and you want to look at T-SQL script, stay in Visual Studio. You're a DBA or a data or a query-oriented person and you're working in SMS all day, every day. Cool. You want to stay there, right? It's a pain Anybody, has anybody ever actually done like data development or SSDT development with data projects in Visual Studio? Except for red gators, you guys don't count. You have?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have too. I loved it, except for one thing. I was not in SSMS. That made me insane. I thought it was awesome. It's a great set of software. And if you want to check it out, do. What did you think?
Pain.
It was a pain?
Yeah.
Because
It didn't work that well. A lot of the builds didn't work. It was a bug we had.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun.
Well, no, I'm not going to argue whether or not it's buggy. And plus, that's a great, what he said was, it was really buggy. That's for the recording. SSDT was really buggy. What did it say? There we go. I didn't think it was, but what I found for my workflow was it messed me up, because if I'm working on a query, I'm not just working on a query. I'm also concerned about, well, okay, wait, hang on, what kind of indexes do I have? Well, yeah, I can mess with the indexes inside of Visual Studio. Cool. All right, and then how does that query and the index work together? Well, execution plan. Ooh, crud. Well, hang on, let me go back to SSMS, rerun the query, get the execution plan. Okay, that's good. Well, okay, now I've got to edit it, so let me go back over to Visual Studio to edit the. After a little while, you're kind of doing this because you're switching apps over and over again. The quick keys are different. Execute. Yeah, oh crud, what happened to my window? No, that's not Control E, it's something, that does something else. So it makes you nuts. And the same thing goes the other way. If you're a Visual Studio guy, moving an SSMS just feels like going back to the Stone Ages, right? That's mainly because it is. That's a port from like 2003 of Visual Studio, and it's never changed to this day. Hey, look at the time, 11 years later. Be afraid. Oh, Teams, right. I'm going to go ahead and keep using my other machine because it's got a license that works. So what happens if I'm this guy? Oh wait, he's not. Oh, it's checked into the wrong database. Hang on one second. Let's go to we'll create a new one. We'll just call it MM. All right, let's get this guy's link. Copy. What? Just copy it. Let's go to here, link the database to source control, paste. Okay, so it's linked to source control. Now I can do a get latest. Now, so you've already seen me check everything in. Now when I do a get, what's going to happen is it just created a database for me. Whole darn thing, all done, including the store procedures that we created earlier. Now, hang on, let's fix it real quick. All right, so now we've got those in there, and we can let's just modify the query. We've got to actually expand on it. Join location type on. So there we go, right? Joined in another table. We can even add, expand the wildcards on that. That would probably cause all kinds of problems, wouldn't it? So we'll clean that up. And keyboard's killing me. There we go. So now if I modify this, right, alter proc, it's all good. Obviously, it's already picked up on it right over here. So it knows that I've now modified that query. Oh, I don't have zooming on. But we can go back to, we can close that out and close this out. Go back to source control. Go back to commit changes, and it knows that we've got the query, and it knows what changes we've made, that we've added these things, and that it notices the changes in the commas. Okay? It only notices those because we made other changes. Let me just get there we go. I know people in the back are going, what the heck is he talking about? Right? So it notices the changes, and it actually is going to change the commas this time. But that's okay. We're going to check it in. Now I'm this other guy. I'm back up here in movie management. And now I notice, hey, look, there's been changes made to the stored procedure. Some idiot moved the commas and put them in the wrong spot. Oh, wait, and they've also added in other tables and other columns. And so I'm going to have to do a get. So I'm going to do a get latest and make sure it comes back down to me. Pulls it back in. And so now I've got the latest copy of the query. You'll notice they all change, right? Oops. They all change. Nothing's bad now. And if I go in here to my other query, into my other database, and modify, there we go. It now looks like it did on the other query, in the other environment. So literally what we've got is two different databases, two different people making changes, and they can move it back and forth in and out of source control on the fly. Yes, sir.
Can you clarify something on versioning, please? You mentioned a moment ago, oh, I might want version this of this stored procedure, or I might want version something else.
Right.
I sort of understood that when you committed your database to source control, the version applied to the picture of how the database in its entirety now looks today, rather than individual objects.
Oh, gosh, no.
So if there's two of us working on our shared database, and he's responsible for fixing one bug and I'm doing another one, we're working in separate areas. My version of the two sprots that relate to this bug have got to be revised, and his might get revised, and then, hey, he cocked it up, so we've got to undo his, but
Right.
we want to undo mine.
Right.
So, how do you relate to what version is your database if there's individual things that can change their versions internally?
Excellent question. I'm not going to repeat it. You guys okay with that? I know the recording's not. You'll have to live, because that's a long question. Everybody heard it?
Yeah.
Cool. I've got a couple of answers. Answer number one, it doesn't really matter, because you've got everything in source control and you've got everything individually versioned, right? Everything, because every single script, including primary keys, indexes, every single script has got its own versioning going on. And so you can roll something back, I'll show you here in a second, historically pick something up and roll it back independent of the other objects in the database, which is good and bad. Because if let's say you add a column to a table and you add an associated column inside the store proc, if you roll back the table, what's going to happen to the store proc? It's going to break, right? It's going to break. So you're going to have to roll those two things back together. But that's a different issue. The main issue you're talking about is that concept of two different things going on at the same time. Option 2, branching. Now that's a source control system thing, not us. We work with branches, yes, but all we do is manage versions. We're kind of, your source control system does whatever it does. And if you say, oh, well, we're building this database off of branch A, and we're building that database off branch B, we're aces, right? You're just connecting up to two different sets of source code, and we're good to go. But branching will allow you to make your changes independent of him, both in the source control system and database-wise. Now, if you're sharing the database, we already talked about that may or may not be a good idea, right? That's you could conflict with each other. But if you don't share the database, each individual branch can go off on its own, no issues. Let's see, I thought I had one other answer. No, nothing's coming to my brain, back to my brain. I thought I had one more, but those are the two approaches I would take. Because it can be individual, but honestly, branching would be the mechanism that allows you to separate the code so that idiot A doesn't step on what you're doing. And you had a comment? One second.
Another thing, you could actually try to merge conflicts. So you could be working on your version of the stored code. Your teammate could be working on another version of the stored code. And
But-
once you commit that, the other person can try and resolve the conflict in the town.
Absolutely. If you've got like Git or Mercurial, or yeah, you can do it with TFS, and you can even do it with VSS, sort of, kind of. You can merge the changes, but you would only do that if you're both working on the same object. He was talking about working on two different objects, but if the whole database is versioned together, and it's just not. It really depends on how you want to do your versioning. Oh, I remember my third thing. My third option is labeling. Because you can pull out multiple versions of everything, and the whole concept is that you would not check in until you've tested everything. So let's assuming he's screwing up his stuff, you've got yours tested, you check in, it goes through, hey, I'm going to set up Dave now, a continuous integration build, which gets part of the continuous integration build is to do the build after a check-in and then label the code. He checks in later, oops, it's broken, it breaks the continuation build, it doesn't label the code, you're still protected because you've got a labeled, tested version of the code, so you can always pull yours out independent of the other guy. So yeah, those are the three approaches. One, don't worry about it because everything's in source control and you can individually version. Two, branch it. Or three, use labeling as a mechanism to make sure that you've got protection. Yes?
Yeah, to do with the merge conflict. You've got the Redgate source control running through Microsoft Studio.
Right.
Does it handle merge conflicts basically the same way as TFS? Or?
Not at all. You know why? Because we're not doing the merge conflicts, TFS is. So you've got conflicts and stuff. What happens when you do the merge? I actually haven't done that in a test, so I don't want to say because I'll step on something.
So I think we have this feature integrated in the latest version, which allows you to integrate it with one of the dev tools, so you can use Beyond Compare, and this is the other one. So you can just kickstart that and use the same merge functionality as you do for these dev tools and then merge it back in.
Does the product actually warn you that the underlying object's changed?
Yes.
It does.
That much I know. Yes, it does. So the other thing you can do is over here, you can go in here and get, you can get a history. And that history is per the object, right? So that's, those are changes being made to the object. And that's individual on the database. So those changes are object changes, and you can get that version of the object. You don't have to change the entire database to update to go to a different version of the object. It really is independent. It's not that the database is changing as a lump. Although my first time I did database versioning, the first time I did database source control, you know how I did it? Scripted everything out. And every database change was the database. Here's a new version of the database. What did you do? Oh, we added a comment on a store product. We have a new version of the database. The good old days. Isn't that great being a technologist? Because you never say that. Well, you know, back when things were better. They were not better. They were horrible. All right. Make sure you do this. All of it. Everything. Everything should go into source control. Now, does Redgate do everything? Nope. We don't. Does anybody? Nope. I don't know anybody who does everything. But you should do everything anyway. You've got jobs. You should get those checked into source control. Why? Think about it. Sure, Timmy, the junior DBA would never change anything in production without telling anybody. That's never happened to anyone, has it? No, of course not. Configuration settings. You want to have a way to manage those. I mean, does everybody have a run book? Changes you've made to production servers, like literally a log. I've made this change, I made that change. That's another mechanism of source control. It's a difficult manual mechanism because you got to run backwards and going, what the heck, when, oh, look, here, Tuesday, somebody made a change. It's a good idea. Assembly code, security code, object DDL. Now, we're covering object DDL. We're covering some security code. Lookup data. We can actually get lookup data and check it into source control too. Now, caveat. Lookup data. 10, 50, 100, 500 rows. 50 million rows for lookup data. No, don't do that. Not with us. Check that into Visual Studio. Yeah, I know, because they'll work worse than us, but but it's small data sets, right? 100 rows, 500 rows, or less. Version control, everything. Commit early and often, except test before you commit. Test before you commit, right? Don't just commit. Oh, I made a change. Commit. Dave's going to tell you why in a little bit. I'm supposed to be off the stage now, but Dave's going to tell you why in a little bit. Use the tools. Now, the reason I tell you to use the tools is not because I want to sell you RegGate stuff. It's because if it's hard, if it's manual, if it's painful, nobody's going to do it. Or nobody's going to do it well, or nobody's going to do it often. And you want to make this so it's a constant thing. And I'll talk about why it's a constant thing later. Train people and then do your builds. Constantly be doing your builds. And again, I talk about that in a lot more detail later. The idea is you want to get to a point where you've got this going on. We're getting set up for David coming in talking about this. You want to get to the point where you've got continuous integration, where you are literally going from source control in a version control system through some sort of build, and then analysis, build, up through testing, comes back around, and it just goes in a circle like this, so that it's literally going out to production through a tested process that you don't have to think about because it just happens. Hopefully we hit these goals today in this little session talking about it. I know I use the word source control quite a lot, but I am serious about it. The next session is going to be on how to do automated tests and builds. And we've got a couple of minutes for questions. I've got references. The slide deck, you guys are going to get the whole slide deck. I've got references here. And if you got one or two questions, and then other than that, there's a million RegGaters out here who could probably answer most of what I said, although they don't have some of the horror stories I do, and I'll be telling more later. Any questions?
I'm assuming SSIS is in the list of
SSIS should be in source control. Do we do it? No. Do I wish we did it? Yes. I wish we did it, but we don't. That's just not something it's a tough nut to crack. Best way to put it.
Can I ask about the local development? How do you sort of protect it in terms of backups if it's just...
Can I talk about that later? She asked, what about the local development? How do you protect that in terms of development and stuff? Let's talk about that in the third session. Okay? Remind me, if I don't say it, you ask that question again, please. Anything else? Okay, one more and we'll take a break.
On the reasons that you might want to use a shared development environment.
Right.
One scenario that you didn't mention was where you have a services layer. You've got a dozen services, it's config, the pane of config. So we've got a dozen services, I've got half a dozen databases. One of them's 20 gigs, so you kind of touched on the size.
Size, yeah.
That's an issue. But if you've got a dozen services and you're developing an application, you need to touch your application, your database. Maybe you don't care about the services, but you need them there.
Right.
To get a database in order to run your application.
Okay.
That config pane is going to...
I'm going to punt on that question again until my next session, because I talk about that in detail. That's exactly one of the things I want to cover. Is exactly that question, okay? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Cool. You had one more? No?
Scratching my head.
Oh, scratching your head, okay. Me too. Okay, thanks for coming for this one. David's going to be coming up next for continuous integration and testing and deployment and all that fun stuff. And other than that, I'm going to be around for the third session. And if you want to queue up outside, we can ask questions out there. Thanks.